Hi everyone, Mr. Ong here. In this video, I'll be teaching you guys about structured response question, in particular SRQ question 6. By the end of this video lesson, you should be able to understand what SRQs are about, identify some common strategies you can use in your SRQs, match strategies to elaboration and explanation, and most importantly, craft strategies that are clear, well elaborated, and solve the root cause of a certain problem. Now, what are SRQs and where will you see this? In your social studies paper, there are two sections, section A on your source-based questions and section B, which are your structured response questions. The focus of this video is on question 6, which tests your ability to construct reasoned arguments, make informed judgments, and give recommendations or strategies to solve certain societal issues. This sounds very chim, but let's look at an example you might have already seen. So this is an example of a SRQ question 6, in which you have an extract and a question. This extract describes a certain societal problem or societal issue. Okay, it serves as background information that allows you to spark some ideas, get some ideas or suggestions you might have to solve this problem. And unlike section A, source-based questions, you are not supposed to quote from this extract. Okay, so do not quote from this extract. It's just meant to give you some ideas on content that has been covered in your syllabus. Okay. So over here is the question. So it says that only a small group of Singaporeans are doing volunteer work. What are some ways we can encourage Singaporean youths to engage in volunteer work? Explain your answer using 2 strategies. Now, the number of strategies or recommendations you need to provide depends on which stream you're in. If you're in the express stream, you need to provide 2 strategies. For the NA stream, provide 1 strategy. Okay, so that's what an SRQ question 6 looks like. Now, what would make a good strategy? So if we look over here, good strategies are ones that are clear, they're specific in terms of what they're proposing. They're well elaborated, meaning there are some examples or there are enough details so I know what your strategy is about. And most importantly, it must solve the root cause of a certain problem so you can achieve an effect or outcome. What does this look like? Okay, so let's look at this question 6. Okay, and whenever we do a question in SS, there's a certain routine of thinking. So the planning routine for SRQs, question 6, is to work backwards from a certain outcome that's happened or certain effect that you want to see. So in this case, the effect or outcome you want to see is that Singaporean youths are engaged in volunteer work. Okay, so you ask yourself, what's the outcome you want to see? The outcome is more Singaporean youths are engaged in volunteer work. Now, you have to ask yourself the question, what is the main cause of this problem, or what is the main challenge that prevents this outcome from happening? Okay, what's preventing youths from engaging in volunteer work? In other words, you need to dig deep and propose what is the root cause of this problem. And when you identify the root cause of the problem, you try to think of a strategy that can solve this root cause. Okay, and you describe this strategy. So let's look at a sample paragraph of a strategy. Okay, so let's start off with the outcome we want to have, which is Singaporean youths are encouraged to engage in volunteer work. Now, you might propose a problem, the root cause of the problem. You might think, okay, what's preventing youths from engaging in volunteer work? It could be because some of them feel volunteering as an individual person is very lonely, and maybe you only have a small impact. Because of this, you're very discouraged. You don't feel like engaging in volunteer work. Given that this is the root cause of the problem, or at least that's what you think is the root cause of the problem, what is a strategy or recommendation to overcome this problem? A possible one, it could be that the government can start to form some volunteer groups. These groups can be doing things like doing beach cleanups to pick up litter, or to do regular visits to old folks' homes. Now, I want you to describe this strategy about these volunteer groups. What exactly would these groups look like? How would they work? Okay? Because in groups, people are more encouraged to volunteer when they are part of a group with common goals. Because these groups, they support each other, they help each other to plan, they help each other to think of practical ways they can be serving the community. And so they have a larger impact. And it also finally makes volunteering more fun and engaging. So with this strategy, you can overcome the problems of individuals feeling lonely or that they can only have a small impact. And finally, they're engaged in volunteer work. Okay, so you start off with the effect or outcome that you want to have. You figure out what's the root cause of the problem, and then you propose a strategy. So this is a sample strategy on volunteer groups. Put together in a single SRQ paragraph, this is what it might look like. So first you answer the question, what is the strategy? So we engage in volunteer work. We encourage youth to engage in volunteer work because the government starts to form volunteer groups. This is what they do. We describe the strategy using an example. So an example could be SPCA, which aims to protect animals from human cruelty. And then you go on to elaborate what exactly is this strategy about, and finally you explain how it solves the root problem. Now, this is one possible strategy you could consider. There are many other strategies you might have possibly thought of. And so the first activity that I would like you guys to pause the video to consider is to look at these different strategies, descriptions, root cause of the problem, and the shared effect. What you will notice is that the cards here displayed on the screen, they are a little bit jumbled up. Your first activity is to match the strategies S1, S2, S3 to the appropriate descriptions D1, D2, and D3, their root cause of the problem C1, C2, and C3, and finally their effect or outcome. So for example, if you think strategy 1, which is about advertising on social media about volunteering, what is the appropriate description of this strategy? If you might think, okay, maybe it's D3 about VIA programs, then you write D3 over here. And if you think, what is the root cause this strategy is trying to solve? Maybe you think C2 is about how Singaporean youth don't want to volunteer because they don't see how it benefits them. Then you write C2 over here. Okay, so pause this video, try to unjumble these strategies, descriptions, and root causes, and fill this part in. Okay, pause the video right now. Okay, I hope that you guys were able to sort out the strategies, descriptions, root causes, to match the appropriate cards to each other. Now, the intention of this activity is to just give you guys more ideas on strategies you may not have thought of. Okay, firstly. Secondly, to give you, to show you the kind of descriptions and explanations you should provide in your SRQs to make sure that it will be a reasoned argument that is well thought out. And thirdly, the point of this activity is to model to you the kind of connections that you need to show between your strategy, your description, your explanation, and finally the effect or outcome you are trying to have. Now, the final instruction is for you guys to copy out one such strategy onto your effort grade as your corrections. Okay, that will be all for this video.